I can hardly believe it, but this summer of 2025 marks 20 years of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which means we are celebrating 20 years of my favorite series of all time, and the book series that got me into reading as a child and into reading as an adult. This is going to be my ultimate guide into all the books Rick Riordan has ever published, primarily being Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. In case you couldn't tell, I am a bit of a mega fan and have been since I was very young. This series means so much to me, and to be able to share my love of it with you, to hopefully get you to read this series, would just mean the world. I'm going to tell you all about the basics of what this series is about, what you need to know going into it, and the reading order that you should read it in. Towards the end, I'll make a little graphic on the screen so you can screenshot it if you like, but I'll also have them listed down below in the text. Percy Jackson is a middle grade or young adult fantasy series in which the gods of ancient Greece are alive and well today, and they have children with mortals, and these children are called demigods. This series follows one demigod in particular, as well as his band of friends as they try to save the world. This book series is incredibly popular, and it always has been, especially amongst the youth, because that is what it is written for. But honestly, as a late 20s person, I still very much enjoy these books, half for nostalgia purposes, but also half just because they are so much fun. After years of its popularity, it was given a movie deal, and we got Percy Jackson and the Olympians. We also got a sequel to the movie. Now, at the time, I, amongst many other Percy Jackson fans, absolutely hated the movies because they did not follow the books whatsoever. But now, several years later, we kind of see them as a cult classic. They are absolutely hilarious, and they have the total vibes of the books, even if they do not whatsoever follow the plot. Particularly the second movie, The Sea of Monsters. I think they just smushed 4 books together because they knew they were not going to get a third movie. And now, many, many years later, Rick Riordan got his second chance of having a visual aspect of these books, and he signed on for Disney Plus for a new TV series. The first series has already been out for a few years now, and he is a co-writer on the project, and the second season is coming out this December. I could have a whole rant about the series itself. It does follow the books rather well with a few updated changes written by Rick, but it doesn't really get the vibes that the original cult classic movies had or these books, but that's okay. I have a lot of faith that the second season is going to be better. This book that I'm holding now is the newer edition of the paperbacks. These are the ones you're gonna find in stores, but I actually have my original paperbacks from when I was a kid. And that would be these 5 books right here. This is the original series of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This series mostly follows Percy Jackson, who is the son of Poseidon, his best friend Grover Underwood, who is a satyr, aka a half boy, half goat, and his other best friend Annabeth Chase, who is the daughter of Athena. In this original series, we learn that Percy isn't exactly a normal boy, things are going awry, and then suddenly he starts being attacked by monsters, and he's taken to this camp called Camp Half-Blood. This is the shirt that all of the campers wear in the series. Camp Half-Blood is where all of the Greek demigods are brought so they can train to fight monsters, learn to deal with their godly parents, and learn to just deal in the normal world. All of the kids are teenagers because these demigods don't typically live into adulthood. Each book we follow Percy and his friends on a different quest as they travel around and try to save the world. The books in order are The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. A note of fair warning, in the first book, Percy Jackson is 11 years old, and for me, that is almost always too young of a protagonist for me to read books, but this is the one exception. Each year, he grows up, so he's 11, he's 12, he's 13, he's 14, and he's 15 in this original series. And again, even 15 is usually too young for me, but not so for Percy Jackson. These books are definitely catered towards children, but I still laugh out loud as an adult. I still understand everything that they're going through, and he doesn't write down to you. These children are learning about themselves and the world around them, and they're dealing with some pretty major problems while also just growing up and making friends and just being, figuring out who you are as a person. Don't let his age throw you off in these books. Although it is very juvenile at times, it's also just hilarious and heartfelt and serious and unserious at the same time. If you're hesitant about going into these books because you don't know anything about Greek mythology, it's okay. When I was 8 years old, I didn't know anything about Greek mythology either. This was actually my introduction into the Greek pantheon. And a pantheon is a collection of gods and goddesses. I'll bring up that word again. This is a very kid-friendly version of the ancient Greek myths that you may or may not know, but they all definitely have their Uncle Rick spin on it. Also, Uncle Rick is what the fandom calls Rick Riordan. For example, Percy's dad is Poseidon, who is Lord of the Seas in the Greek pantheon. He's not always depicted as a very great guy because he usually isn't. He's usually at the core of a lot of problems in the ancient Greek world, but in this version, he's actually like a beach bum dad. He wears a Hawaiian shirt, he wears sandals, and he's just like a very chill guy. So yes, there is very much a kiddo spin on these books, so if you don't know anything about Greek mythology, it's okay. He will very gently walk you through the ideas of what's what's behind it. But if you do know Greek mythology, you know a lot of the myths, or you know a lot of just the people behind it, you will interact with so many Greek characters in the pantheon. It's not even funny how many are going to be in this series. They will be nice little fun surprises for you as you get through them, and you get to see his take on them in a kid-friendly way. But again, if you don't know anything about them, it's a-okay. If you'd like a little bit of a rundown, I highly recommend going on YouTube and looking up some general overlooks of the Greek pantheon, just like Greek Myths 101 or like the Greek Gods 101. Stuff like that, you will be more than well equipped to get through these books. But the point being, when Percy is 11, he also doesn't know anything at all, so Rick will very gently walk you through everything alongside Percy. Rick has also written his own guides into Greek gods and Greek heroes, but they are again still from his perspective of a child-friendly spin on it. So these are going to be tales from his pantheon inspired by Greek myths. So you can read these books. I highly recommend reading them after the original series though, to get just a bit more context without any spoilers for the original series. But again, these are not going to be like normal Greek mythology books that you'll find at the bookstore or the library. Like, they are very much the Riordanverse version of these. Now, Rick loves writing little companion novels and stories to go along with his major worlds. They are absolutely not necessary to any of the reading orders, but I love them because they add just a little bit more fun to the behind the scenes of the characters. You get a little bit more insight into their daily lives and into the characters. They can be a little hard to find though. Whenever I find them in a used bookstore, I snatch them up because they are not very common. A lot of libraries don't carry them either, so it can be very difficult to find them. So you're not missing out on anything if you don't find these and you don't read them, but they are a fun addition if you get really into the world and you want a little bit more. I will include them in the reading list both at the end of the video and in the description should you like to enjoy them. This one, for example, is just more mini stories from Percy's time at camp. This little fun guy is just a little bit more into the characters themselves. And this one is even more stories while at camp. If you do get to them though, I highly recommend reading the original 5 books first and then going into these companion novels. They have also been making the books into graphic novels. I've been able to find 4 of the 5 original books. Of course, I'm missing The Lightning Thief, which is the first one, but going through, hold on, maybe not that one because that's probably spoilery. But if you enjoy graphic novels, this one is also very, very fun and an easy way to get into the series, especially if you have young kids like my brother who did not really like reading but did like graphic novels. But the art for these is just absolutely so much fun. They absolutely encapsulate the vibes of the characters. Like, there's some serious stuff that goes on, but there's also just really big themes of action and adventure and found family and just, you know, some serious topics, but also just a lot of fun. It's time for a shirt change from me because after the original 5 books in Percy Jackson The Olympians, Rick Riordan opened up his world into other pantheons and other worlds. And the second pantheon that he included in his verse is going to be all about Roman mythology. And that is going to be the Heroes of Olympus series. This is his second major book series that takes place directly after Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It turns out the Greek gods aren't the only ones out there. Now, if you know your history, you know that the Roman Empire conquered pretty much all of Europe. They took a lot of inspiration for their own pantheon and their own religion from the places that they conquered, especially from Greece. So all of the Greek gods and goddesses, they made a little bit of a Roman spin on them and made them their own. For example, the Greek god Zeus, Lord of the Skies and Thunder, became Jupiter for Rome, and Poseidon, Greek god of the seas, became Neptune. So in this series, we're learning that these Greek gods are at the same time their Roman equivalents, and they're starting to feel a little fuzzy. They keep flashing back and forth their Greek and their Roman personas, and they're getting a little bit crazy. After we've defeated the big baddie from the first series, there's now of course a second big baddie who's coming in this series and is screwing things up for our young demigods who just want to live. So it is of course time for Percy Jackson and his band of friends to step together and team up to defeat the next big baddie. They are a little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, definitely more powerful and more skilled, and more ready to fight the next big person. There are 5 books in this series: The Lost Hero, The Son of Neptune, The Mark of Athena, The House of Hades, and The Blood of Olympus. Going into this series can be a little bit of a jump scare for people who aren't prepared, because the first book, The Lost Hero, Percy isn't in this one at all. We actually start following a new band of demigods from the Roman camp, which is Camp Jupiter. Camp Half-Blood is just outside of New York City, and Camp Jupiter is on the west coast in California. So here we meet a new band of demigods as they find their way to Camp Jupiter, and we learn all about this new camp and this new Roman pantheon and how they work, because they are very different to the Greek kids. But don't worry, Percy comes right back into the series in the second book, The Son of Neptune. Here is where he meets his own band of Roman kids and they start teaming up with the rest. In the Percy Jackson series, we stay in the United States, but once we get into the Heroes of Olympus, we actually leave the United States to go back to Europe. And this is where we start fighting the big baddies in their home original lands of Rome and then Athens. So the characters get older, the world gets bigger, the stakes get higher. There is so much more going on in this series. They are thick books, but you still fly through them so fast. Another difference is that Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, the first series, takes place entirely from Percy's perspective. But in this series, Rick decided to have multiple POVs, which means we're gonna get the perspectives of all of the demigods on these quests. But to let you in on a little secret, everyone's favorite point of view is still, of course, Percy. And again, Rick can't help himself. He also has companion novels for this series, which I recommend reading after you finish The Blood of Olympus. Now, Rick is pretty clear about his timeline, which means we know exactly when each of the books take place and how they all overlap together. So technically, right after those books is the newest series that he's still currently reading. 2 of the 3 are out so far. This series goes right back to Percy as he is trying to get into college and he has to ask for recommendations from gods. But of course, they have their own stipulations that he needs before he can get those letters of recommendation. So technically, you can read them right after Heroes of Olympus, but I'm gonna recommend something different. We'll come back to these. I wish I had t-shirts for all the rest of the series because we're about to go through other pantheons and other characters, but I don't. I only have the 2, so we're gonna stick in my favorite Percy Jackson t-shirt for the rest of the video. Now, the next series you're gonna read is the Kane Chronicles. These follow Egyptian mythology and Egyptian pantheon, and they take place in the same world. Now, technically in the timeline, these books take place at the same time as that second series, the Heroes of Olympus. However, I highly recommend reading them after you finish that series so you get a little bit of a break from Percy and his friends, and you go a little bit into new series. There's only 3 books in this series: The Red Pyramid, The Throne of Fire, and The Serpent's Shadow, and they follow 2 siblings as they go on their own adventures. They have magician powers, they find their way to a really cool magician school, so there's a lot of that academic setting in here, and there's a lot of Egyptian lore in these books. And of course, we have our companion novels to read after you finish the series. This is when the Greek kids meet the Egyptian kids, and this one's just a fun little manual into behind the scenes of their school. And then you go into the Magnus Chase trilogy. Now, this trilogy follows Norse mythology, and our main character here, Magnus, is the cousin of Annabeth Chase, who is in the original series. Magnus here is thrust pretty violently into the world of Norse mythology. The opener is such a banger in this one. I was not expecting it at all the first time I read it, but he follows his own adventures here as he deals with the Norse pantheon. And once again, we of course have companion novels to read after you finish that series. And again, technically in the timeline, the Magnus Chase series takes place at the same time. It completely overlaps with this next series I'm about to talk about, but I highly recommend reading the Magnus Chase books first, getting those out of the way, finishing up your Norse world before jumping back into the Greek pantheon, which is the Trials of Apollo series. This one also technically takes place right after the Heroes of Olympus series, but I highly recommend giving yourself a little bit of a break from the action unless you are ready to jump right in. Now, this is a 5-book series, but I only have 3 of the 5, and to be completely honest, I have not read these ones yet, because the last time I reread all of the books, these were still coming out, and I didn't want to start the series without being able to finish them. I can't even give you the premise of these series without spoiling everything else so far, but just know the first book is The Hidden Oracle, and it does have its own arc within 5 books. Now, once you have read absolutely everything else so far, you can hop into The Sun and the Star, which follows one of the original characters of the main series, Nico D'Angelo. This has spoilers for the rest of the series, so I haven't read it yet, but I've heard very good things. He did co-write it with another author. And once you have done that, that is when I recommend you go back into the series that Rick is still currently writing. So not only is it his newest series, but after all of these other pantheons, all these other series, it's going to feel like home going right back to Percy. And again, I haven't gotten to these ones yet, but I am so excited. Now, Rick is pretty busy working with the Disney Plus show, so I don't anticipate him coming out with too much, but I do anticipate him still writing. He loves this series, he loves this world, and he loves his fans, and the fans love him most of the time. We don't call him Uncle Rick without reason. And if you follow the Percy Jackson pipeline, as many of us do, into other Greek mythology retellings or other mythology tellings at all, I am more than happy to give you my own recommendations that aren't in the Riordanverse. These vary from YA retellings to romance retellings to just entire Iliad or Odyssey retellings. There's so much more in the world of mythology and mythology retellings that we can explore. Thanks to Percy Jackson, I of course lean very heavily towards Greek mythology retellings, but I do love exploring other pantheons and other worlds. If you'd like a video on those recommendations, please let me know. I would be more than happy to make them. This was everything I could possibly tell you about the Percy Jackson universe without giving you any more spoilers. But please let me know in the comments if this was helpful for you, if you have any questions that I can answer, or if you recommend a different reading order, or if you have specific thoughts about the series you think other people should know. I've been dying to reread these books. I reread the first one in anticipation of the first series of the Disney Plus TV show coming out, and I've had this plan for when the second series comes out. I'm going to complete my reread, reading all of these books up here. That way I can finally read the new books that I have not yet read. I may do a spoiler vlog for that one, so if you've also read this series, you can reminisce along with me. Stay around one more second for my suggested reading order, but thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.